Hello, Sacha Thompson. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with me as a part of the Conversation with Black Women Who Coach series. I followed you on LinkedIn for quite some time, and so I was really happy when you reached out and said that you would be willing to be a part of this. Um, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so thank you. So again, name is Sacha Thompson. I am the founder and CEO of the Equity Equation, which is a diversity coaching and consulting business in the Washington, D.C. area. And so through that, I really do two things. One is diversity coaching. And so work with clients that could be mostly my clients are people of color, those from marginalized or under served populations that are trying to figure out or navigate their way through corporate space,
Mhm.
particularly if they're dealing with issues that are related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? So microaggressions, gaslighting, those types of things. The other types of clients that I have are executives that are either DEI practitioners or and consultants in this space that are understanding the heavy burden that comes along with this type of work, or those that are in executive leadership positions that want to do the right things, but again, because this is so very new to them, they're kind of grappling with how do I kind of get over my own experience as not being the same experience as everyone else, right? And how do we continue to move forward? So that's the coaching side of my business. The consulting side of my business really is working with organizations to help facilitate conversations and help drive change throughout their organization. So it's going beyond that one workshop to, okay, how do we take this learning and really make it something that we can continue to do as we continue our DEI journey? So those are the kind of the two areas that I touch.
You are doing some hard work. That's all I can say. I ran operations, I managed HR, I've launched DEI, and I will be honest that part of the reason that I decided to leave corporate America at the time I did was had a lot to do with how I saw DEI being practiced and how
Yep.
problematic I thought it was and how harmful I thought it was. So I really commend you for what you're doing. I mean, as a person of color who's been in these spaces and a Black woman, I was lucky enough to have a coach that I could talk about some of those things with because she was a Black woman, but it is so difficult to have to do this kind of work and to even be a part of organizations claiming that they're doing this kind of work
Mm-hmm.
when you know what the real deal is and you know what's really happening while outside they're saying one thing and inside they're doing other things.
Yep.
So it's a lot. It's really hard work that you're doing, and I commend you for doing that because I know I could never do it. So
But it's and thank you for that because what's interesting is I left for the same reasons, right? I was dealing with microaggressions. I was dealing with being gaslit by the people that were leading diversity and
mhm,
inclusion, right? And so it's like you're saying one thing, but how you're treating me is very
right.
different and very problematic. Um, and so I made the decision that I need to kind of control the environment that I'm in to do this work, and I needed to remove myself from kind of the ignorance and toxicity and the fragility that
Yes.
I was dealing with,
Yes.
right? Because a lot of what I was saying was very truthful, but it was hitting people hard because they
Mhm,
hadn't done the internal work themselves,
mhm,
yet they
mhm.
were leading these efforts.
Yes, yes, yes.
Um, so yeah, so no, thank you
And
for
or
that.
seeking to take credit for them when they hadn't done the work. I mean, we could have a whole
Exactly.
conversation about this, and maybe someday we will in connection with my hostile work environment work. But yeah,
Yes.
we could have a whole conversation about this topic. But
Yes.
I don't want to do that now. But it's like, yeah, it's that whole the one thing I will say is what I found a lot is that people don't want to be called racist, but they want to be allowed to continue to do racist things. And I'll leave it at that. And we'll pick this up in a separate conversation because we could go
For
for
days
days.
on that topic. Yep.
So you shared a little bit just in the exchange we've just had, but can you tell me what inspired you to become a coach?
It's interesting because I had been coaching people throughout my career without the right tools. And when I was in my situation at my last employer, I had hired a coach, and I don't even remember how a colleague actually connected me to her because we both were doing inclusion marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But as she and I started talking, she was like, "Oh, but I'm a coach as well too." So that relationship just kind of sealed it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had an executive, a Black female executive within the organization that I was in, that saw the situation I was in, and she got me a coach as well too. So I had two coaches working with me to get through this. And through that process, I just noticed it really is about how do you ask the right questions to get people to get to the answers that they already know.
Right.
Um, and so my coach, the one that I had hired, kind of encouraged me, like, continue to do this work, continue to look into this. And so I actually discovered Coach Diversity Institute as I was doing a little bit of research, and I loved what they were doing by making sure that diversity and inclusion was in the center of their coaching experience. And so going through CDI and getting my coaching credentials through them really just allowed me to see some of the some of the gaps that were happening just within coaching, but then also within the D&I space, and how do you bring those together? So that's really where I got the motivation to continue to do this work, because I wanted to continue to work with practitioners and people in this space, but I needed the right tools to do that.
Why would you say having a Black woman coach is important? Well, first, do you think it's important? And if you do, tell me why. What's the value add?
So both of my coaches are Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what the value add to that was they understood that intersection of existence, right? Especially in the corporate space. They weren't coming at it from, oh, well, this is just a women's issue, or this is just a Black people issue. This is a Black woman's issue and something that we uniquely experience. And both of them had been in corporate spaces, worked for large corporations, and saw the same patterns. And I think they saw the patterns that only we would see because they're the things that we only experience. And so because of that, they were able to guide me, or at least ask the right questions, so that I was thinking about things in a very different way. Because again, the advice I was getting from other people that had good intentions had not had that experience.
Right.
And so having them kind of be my guide really helped me get to a point where I said, you know what? I'm good no matter where I am, but I'm going to choose to focus on me, which is something that we don't tend to do.
I love that you said that, because I had a similar experience as people who know about me with having two Black women coach me as well. Was that it was a very validating experience for me, because, I was getting a lot of feedback that was constantly, you're the problem. And, if you change this and you tweak that and you do this, then everything would be fine. And it was really validating to have someone say, maybe the problem actually isn't you, right?
Yeah.
And that maybe it's the environment that you're in. And what are you going to do about that? Right.
Yeah.
And not because after a while, you do start to question your abilities. And I'm a very confident person, but it does chip away at your self-confidence after a while, and start taking a toll on you. Right. When part of you knows that it's not you, but you keep getting messaging that's saying it is. And so it was very validating to have a Black woman to work with, to help me see the things where there were issues that I needed to address, but also to see things where actually it was not me, but that I still had control, because you still have control over how you choose to relate to something, whether you choose to stay, whether you choose to leave. So you have control, and not to feel powerless and like I was stuck, but still validated the things that I was experiencing. And was able to even help me to name some of the things that I was experiencing, which was really important for me. And that's a good segue to my next question, which is even if you are, you know, looking for a coach and you decided you want to find a Black woman coach, and hopefully, you know, in a couple of weeks you go to my directory and you find one there. What are the qualities you should be looking for, and what you say a client should be looking for if they're looking for a coach, or specifically if they're looking for a coach like you?
Yeah, I think what's important is you want a coach that is authentic and authentically themselves, right? I have, and not the two coaches that I've had, but I've come across other coaches where they try to shapeshift into who they think the client wants them to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not authentic at all. Um, and so one of the things that I learned from both of those coaches was people are going to, if they connect with you, then that's where you get that, okay, this is somebody that gets me. This is somebody that understands me. And they can't make that connection if you're not your authentic self. Right. And so it's understanding that. I think it's also important to have a coach that has experienced a life. Right. One of the things that I've noticed in this pandemic, especially in the D&I space, is everybody's now a coach and a consultant.
Yes.
And everybody.
It's a proliferation.
And so I think, right. And so it's like, what are you trying to get out of your coach? Like, what should a coach bring you, and understand that, because a coach is not a mentor and a coach is not a therapist. So understanding what is it that you need, and if there's a coach that can meet that need or help you get to your goal. And I always tell people that, you know, if I'm your coach, I'm just going to be that person that's going to ask you a million questions.
So what kind of person should hire you as their coach in light of what you just shared with me?
Ooh, you know what? I think that the clients that I really connect with or gravitate to are those that are really trying to identify their joy, right? Trying to understand, how do I connect my joy to my next, be it professionally or personally, and how to do so in an authentic way, right? So one of my coaching clients that I worked with some months ago was in the IT space, and I spent 10 years in tech. So a lot of my clients come from the tech space, but she was doing one thing, like, okay, I want to go into tech. But then her joy was in the arts. Mm-hmm. And what we discovered was there was a way for the two to blend. There was a way for her 9 to 5 to fuel her passion. Mm-hmm. And there was a way for her to find some of that passion in her 9 to 5 and really just shift what she was doing in tech to fully align with who she was. And that's what I love, right? Like, who are you as an individual? What brings you joy? What brings you peace? And how do you align your personal, professional, whatever it is, goals to that? And those are the clients that I love working with. The second type of client that I love working with are those that are still struggling with this DEI stuff, right? Whatever aspect of that it is, and really diving deep into who they are and why it's a struggle. And it's okay for it to be a struggle. I think people feel like, oh, I have to be 100% on board with everything, and I have to be an expert in everything. And I always tell them, like, every day I'm learning, and that's part of this journey. And so getting people to realize that there's not a final destination, that it truly is a journey. And just, if you have obstacles that are a part of that journey, how do you deal with those obstacles? So those are really the two types of clients that I work with, that I love working with.
I love what you said about people finding their joy and also trying to bring their authentic selves, because I think that's a thing that really gets killed within us, especially as Black women in these corporate spaces, is that you're constantly code switching and constantly trying to shapeshift and be something else and be someone else, because they're constantly telling you that who you really are is a problem. And there's an audacity to being authentic, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, my biggest problem, I always told people, is that I refused to not be my authentic self. I fought viciously and ferociously to maintain my authenticity and to not be willing to give it out at any cost, and to tell the truth and to say what I believe to be right and to be ethical and to call out the BS when I saw it. And there's a price for that. But I think for me, I want us to have the choice to make decisions that allow us to retain our authenticity, allow us to be unapologetic about who we are, and proud of who we are, and to be free to make the choices that we want to make in our lives. And so for me, what you said about allowing people, and that's how you find your joy. If you don't have those things, there's no way that you can be joyful about anything that you do. And one of the things my coach did was to help me find that, like to really be like, well, what would you be doing if you could just do whatever you want? And my first thing was like, I would really like to leave the United States. I'd really like to live somewhere else. And she's like, then that's what we need to talk about. How do you get to the thing that is going to make you the happiest in your life, right? And how do you map a life that's going to allow you to do that? You know what I mean? Yes, you have to make money. Yes, you have to, but how do you get to that thing?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a journey.
And that's a journey, right? It's not something you're going to get to immediately, but having someone to be able to walk you through the steps of even naming the thing that you want to do, so that you can figure out, okay, now how am I? And now I have a business coach that helps me with the how part. Okay, how do you keep this going? How do you make this work? But it was really useful to have someone help me even name that and be able to say, actually, it's a thing you could do. It's not something you have to wait till you're 70 to do. So what do you? Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, it's interesting when you said that. The one question that one of my coaches asked me was, where do you have the most impact, inside or outside of your organization? Mm-hmm. And I fought tooth and nail on the answer to that, because I'm like, I have to do it inside. I have to be a part of the inside. But being inside was killing me.
Yes.
And so when I realized I could have just as much or more impact on the outside of an organization and find my peace and find my joy and not have my hair falling out and not dealing with ulcers.
And just be yourself. And
be my authentic self.
Be yourself. And there's nothing better than that. You know what I mean? That I get to say what I really think now in public forums, unapologetically. And because I'm like, I'm not here to make you feel better. And I would say that to people. You want to do this work? It can't be about making you comfortable and making you feel good. If it doesn't hurt, if you're not uncomfortable and it doesn't make you feel bad as a white person, you're not doing the work. You need to feel bad, because guess what? We feel bad all the time, and we have to bury it, right? We have to bury it. And a lot of times we have to bury it so that you can feel good. And that's not okay, right? Because we're not the ones inflicting the harm, and we're not the ones benefiting from the system. So I really felt like, when you're inside, you can't really do this work well, because there are too many barriers to doing it. And it has to be someone always from the outside that's able to come inside and name the thing. Why? Because you don't have any skin in the game. You know what I mean? You don't have any skin in the day-to-day game. You're not going to, your promotion, your pay, your whatever is not dependent on that. And therefore you get to tell the unvarnished truth. If you choose to do so, which is a whole other conversation we can get into when we talk about DEI separately.
Yeah.
To do so. If you're in it for the right reasons, if you're not in here just to make money, then you have to call the thing out for the client. And then the client has to make a choice about whether they're going to do the right thing or not. But it's your job to call the thing out, right? But you can't really do that well when you're inside. You can't do it very well if you're inside.
Especially if you are a Black woman.
You cannot. Doubly so.
Yeah.
So what are you up to right now? Like what projects? I follow you on LinkedIn, so I know you're doing lots of things. So what are you up to right now with your business?
Wow. So right now I have quite a few things going on. We're in the middle of doing a DEI practitioner survey. Mm-hmm. Because again, a lot of my clients are DEI practitioners. And so I'm noticing the burnout, the stress, all of these things that are happening. And so from that, we're going to be developing some tools and resources for practitioners to protect their peace in this space. So I'll do more things around wellness for them, and doing some coaching, coaching groups around that to,
I'm so
again,
glad
create
to hear that.
community.
Yeah, I'm so glad
Yeah.
to hear that. It's hard work. I mean, I said that in a comment this morning to someone. It's really hard work. I mean, I have a good friend who does this, and I just am like, I don't know how, especially in the last year or two, how you do this and
Yeah.
remain whole. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's hard, it's really hard work to do. So I'm
Yeah.
really glad that you're doing it. Because I come at this, anything about me, I come at this completely different side. Because I'm like, everybody needs to just leave. I am just not for black people being punishing themselves anymore because
Oh yeah.
you know
Look at Nicole. Was it Nicole Hannah
you have no
Jones?
idea how much joy. This is one of my best days this week. When I woke up and saw that headline, I
Yes.
literally screamed because I was from the very beginning when it started, and I first saw the story where they were refusing. They said that they were refusing to give her tenure. I was like, she needs to tell them to kiss her ass and go on about
Yep.
her business. And she basically did that this morning, and I was like,
Yep.
yes, because we have got to stop feeling that it is our responsibility to fix something that they don't
Fix
want to.
their mess.
If they want to
Yep.
fix it and they're prepared to do the work, then you can help them and work with them. But they need to really be prepared to do it and not just when it makes them feel good,
Yeah.
right? Because there are a lot of people who want to say everybody else has a problem, but they don't want to see that they do. And those are the people who are the biggest problems in these organizations. And I'm like, you cannot, as a Black person, fix this. We can't fix this stuff. So we have to just decide how we choose to function in a system that we did not build and that we cannot control and that we cannot change independently, because we would have changed it already if we could. And every
Yep.
time we try, they do something else to make sure that we don't change it, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I'm at the point where I'm like, those of you who want to stay in and do the work, I applaud you. But for my sisters who want to get out, I will do whatever I can do to help you see your way out with your coins. Because I am
Yep.
just like, there is so much to life than doing this stuff, than putting yourself through these things. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm like, I just want to see as many of us get free. I feel like Harriet Tubman some days when I'm talking.
Let me tell you, my coach,
I just want to
I
get.
would tell you, I call her the modern day Harriet Tubman, the corporate Harriet Tubman, because I'm like, it was just, I was on the underground. Like, and she just kind of
Because that's what
pulled me out.
we needed. Because I feel like a lot
We
of
need
times,
it.
I helped a lot of like relatives and friends and stuff leave bad work environments all throughout my career. People would tell me things, I would be appalled, and I would just be like, look, they're breaking the law. This is what you need to do. This is how you need to
Mm-hmm.
do it. But when I started thinking about relocating and I joined a lot of Facebook groups, and over, I just kept hearing women talk about how miserable they were. Their hair was falling
Yep.
out, the stress
Yep.
levels, the physical manifestations. And I was experiencing some of it. My face used to twitch uncontrollably for no reason. I'd be watching TV and my face would start twitching and jumping because I was so.
Mine was my leg. My leg would do
And
it. Yep.
I would be scratching the back of my head. I mean, I have scars at the back of my head from scratching my head from stress at work. And
Yep. 2 bald spots.
yes,
Right
and I was
here.
just like, so many of them, and they were describing specific things, like naming specific things that were happening to them. And I was like, that's not legal. They're not allowed to do that. But we don't know. So we just either stay in it or we leave, right? When we can't take it anymore, we leave. I mean, I have someone I just spoke to who's going on disability leave because they're so stressed out.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They need to pay you as you leave. Yes, you should leave, but not without your coin. I was like, you need to leave because there's life that you can build for yourself outside of this foolishness. You can start your own business. You can go do your own thing. And I have to tell you that 6 months, 12 months of pay goes very far in Mexico. You can live a life that you would not expect that you could live if you have we don't even allow ourselves to have the imagination for some of these things because you're so stressed and you feel so stuck. You know what I mean?
Well, and again, it goes back to the modern day plantations, right? Child, this is a whole nother
Literally.
conversation.
Yeah, literally.
But
It's
that's what it is. It's this mindset of we have to work in this way, in this environment, and this is what's best for us. And until you get out, right, you don't realize.
you don't
Like
realize
my
it. Until you
family,
are free of it, you do not realize
until you're
that.
free.
You don't realize it. You really don't. Because as I sit
No.
here in my lovely home in Mexico, I just am like, I should have done this a long time ago. That's all I could think to myself. I could have done this a long time ago, but I didn't know that I could. I didn't, even though I helped other people do things, I just never thought of it in that way, that you
Right.
don't have to stay and go from one place, because you just leave one plantation, go to another one, right? And then you're going through, in 6 months, you're dealing with the same foolishness again,
Same
right?
thing.
And
Yep.
at some point, and a lot of us never get out. And so my thing is, I just want as many people who want to get out and at least have the imagination, which is why I want women to get coaching, because that's the
Yeah.
only way that I would be where I am, you know? So I'm like, if you get coaching, I'm not going to coach you because I am not a coach. And I tell people that all the time, but I will do the other part for you. You can work out
Yeah.
the imagination part with your coach, but I'll help you get the wherewithal to go do something else if that's what you want to do. But so
Yeah.
many of us, I just feel, especially as Black women, we're just in there laboring away for everybody else, and nobody's taking care of us. We're up there with the cape, and we're
Oh
being
yeah.
strong. And I am like, I'm done. The cape is gone. I've burned the cape. I didn't even hang up the cape. I've burnt the cape. I am not no strong Black woman. I want to be treated, gently and kindly and softly like everybody else
Mm-hmm.
does, because I deserve it and we deserve it. I could argue we deserve it most, and we don't demand it. And it's time for us to, treat ourselves better and treat each other better and
Yeah.
treat ourselves better, and what other people want to do. And that's why I'm so proud of, what, Hannah Nicole, what she did, what Nicole Hannah
Yeah.
Jones did, because she was like, yeah, you all can keep all of that.
She's like, I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna either go do my own thing, or I'm gonna go do my thing with my own people. And y'all
Right.
can keep your tenure and do whatever you want to do with it. So my last question to you is, what is one important thing you've learned about yourself through coaching others? I know there are lots, but
Yeah, there are lots, but I think the number one, and I do some workshops on this, is it ties along with finding your joy, but what is your self-care? Like, how are you taking care of yourself in this? Because to your point, we take care of so many other people. We want to make sure that everyone else is good, right? And we act like, yep, everything is good. Um, but I'm like, what do you do for yourself? What do you do to bring yourself joy? And so I did a post, I think it was on Friday, saying, I don't take client calls on Fridays. Why? Because I know that I am an introvert by nature.
mm-hmm.
And by the time Friday comes around, I'm so burnt out from talking constantly that I need Fridays to just, like, let me get into my little hole. Let me finish up these emails. Let me do, and I do work, but I have to protect that piece and use that as a transition day for the weekend, because I refuse to do work. I try not to do work on the weekend because I'm like, those are days just for me and my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me focus on that. The other thing that I do, I don't know if you can see it from here. Yep, from here. I always have some type of plug-in that's like aromatherapy around me. So I always have some type of scent. My family is from Barbados and St. Vincent. And so it's always some type of either soca, calypso, reggae playing around me so that I'm at peace. So I do those things throughout the day to bring me joy.
I love it. It's
Especially,
so funny.
yeah.
You and I have so much in common. One of the great things about having these conversations is that I'm getting to meet so many people that I have so many similarities with. So my parents are from Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
And I also do not do client calls on Fridays. I
Can't
use
do it.
Fridays to answer emails, to write things that I need to write for the next week. I do not do client, and I do not work on Sundays or Saturdays. And because boundaries. I always tell people boundaries get some.
Yeah.
And you have to set boundaries in order for you to have happiness and peace and tranquility in your life. And I also am an introvert, which people always find surprising, but I did the
Me
test
too.
and I am. And as much as I enjoy people, I need downtime from them. I need an opportunity to like decompress when, especially when I've been doing a lot of calls all week, like last several weeks, I've been doing a lot of
Mm-hmm.
calls, and it's a great, it's a high quality problem to have. But by Friday, like you said, you're just kind of like, my God, I don't want to talk at all. I just want to
To
read.
anybody,
I just
right?
want to be. I don't want to talk. I don't want to have to communicate. I don't want to have to do anything. So it's just funny to me that you said that in like soca and reggae. I'm like, yeah, yeah, and
Oh
liking to
yeah,
smell nice things. Yeah, yeah, because it
yeah,
like calms you. It
yeah.
calms you, and that is a very important thing because a lot of us don't do it. We have to learn later that you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to
You
save
have to
something
feel
for yourself.
yourself. Yeah,
We just so often do not, and we didn't see it. Our parents and families work, 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 work. And we're West Indian. We work, 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 extra work, right? And that's what
yeah,
you're taught. You got to get out there. You got to go after it. You got to work. But you're not really taught about the part where you're supposed to leave something for yourself and take something for
yeah.
yourself. And you kind of learn that later. Like you get out on your own. Both of us are unemployable, as I like to call it. And you realize you're working just as hard, if not harder, when you're working for yourself. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't leave something for yourself, you're going to burn yourself out.
Yeah.
That's what I
I mean,
realized.
the other
I'm
thing,
here in this beautiful place, but I was just like work, 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 and I was like,
you got to enjoy it.
I gotta stop. I need to actually go outside and see some of the things around me in the town that
Yeah.
I moved to and all this stuff because I was just like, oh, I gotta get this done. I gotta get that done. I gotta do this. I gotta do that.
Mm-mm.
And then you're not enjoying anything. You're just working
No,
just as hard.
no.
Right. And so I love that you said that. I think it's a really important last note in
And
this
it could be something small, right? It could be
conversation.
something small. Because one of the things that I did was I'm like, I have a deck that I didn't even use, like we barely used it. And I'm
Girl, I
like, you
have
know
a
what? I'm
rooftop.
right. And
I
I'm
have
like,
a
I'm gonna
rooftop.
do
And
this
I was
deck.
like, wait a minute. And I just finally got myself an umbrella last week
We
and
just
put it
got an umbrella a couple weeks ago.
and was
Oh yeah.
like, I'm going up there at least once a day.
Yeah.
I'm going to go up there and I'm going to sit there because, for goodness sake, I have this thing. It's incredible. The view is beautiful. And I'm like sitting at a table all day, working, 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 working till till tired. I just go to sleep. And I was like, this is
Yeah.
insane. This is not joyful. And I was like,
No.
I
And
got to
that's the
do better
thing.
than
You
this.
have to find those things that fill you. So my deck, I love going out there. And it's even if it's just sitting to just listen to the birds chirp. We had cicadas for a while. I'm like, okay, they're gone. Thank goodness. But just listening to nature,
Yeah.
right? Just finding that peace. I do go to the spa once a month.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's just like, this is okay. My 1 hour, my hour and a half, just focused on me, right? So it's like those little things that you can do that can just constantly fill your cup, or you anticipate like, you know what? I got a spa date coming up in a week.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Right. So you're looking forward to those
Yeah.
things. Those are things I think we take for granted. And that I coach my clients. I always ask them in the beginning, what brings you joy? Let's not talk about work.
Mm-hmm.
What fills you up? What excites you? And we figure out how to incorporate that back into your day, right? Not just your week, but your day. So even if it's a small thing that you can do to focus on yourself for 10 minutes, if it's meditation, whatever it is, how do you do that so you have that time dedicated to yourself?
And I'm glad to hear that you're also doing it for yourself because that's the thing, right? It's not just helping other people to recognize their potential and recognize what they can do for themselves, but also making sure that you're doing the same thing for you. Sasha,
Yeah.
I knew this was going to be fun. I knew I was going to enjoy talking to you, and of course I have. Thank you so much for agreeing to have this conversation with me.
Thank
I
you
know
for having
I
me.
hope it won't be the last. I hope to see you in the directory when it goes live. It's been a joy. You're just as delightful as I thought you would be
Thank
following you
you.
on LinkedIn all this time. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.